This is a new instructional design methodology that's really designed to help learners obtain skills while they're doing things. It's this whole learn by doing notion. We'll talk about it a little bit. I'm not going to make this a challenge-centric learning presentation, but it's important, I think, that we as representatives of the training industry, right, both figuratively and larger, right, how can we get people to really learn these things? Like, how can we start validating whether people know things by the outcomes of what they do, as opposed to, did they watch a video? Hey, they have a course completion certificate. Okay, I mean, what does that mean, right? This idea of having a learning experience that sort of assesses learners, guides them when they need it, and then validates it, and then repeats. It's like an endless cycle of, hey, go do this. Well, okay, they did it. That's great. That means they must be at this level. Now do that. Now do this. And pretty soon, I run into something where I struggle. Okay, well, let's give them a hint. Let's give her a clue, right? I guide a little bit. All of it's on demand, but I now, once I figure it out, I'm like, oh, what to do? Well, I click here, I click there. Well, oh, hey, wait a minute. Then I just do this. Okay. And then right then, you did it. That's right. You put the database in the right place. It has the right permissions. It's the right configuration. Good job. I'm validated now. I'm like, hey, you know what? I figured that out. I'm confident. I'm ready to go. That's the idea. Challenge-centric learning, it builds confidence because it validates people on what they did, on the outcomes of what they did. It validates on results. It doesn't just say, hey, did they guess right on a multiple choice question, right? It isn't just a course completion certificate. Now, is there any evidence to back this up? I think everybody should bring evidence to everything. And I'm not going to, again, bore you with some of this stuff, but there's a lot of science that's been validated for years as far as what do adult learners need. Adult learners do need to be put into a real world situation. We all believe in scenario-based learning. Just getting an adult in a place and saying, okay, do this, do this, do this is less than saying, okay, hey, here's a situation you could see yourself in. You need to prepare yourself so you're ready, right? That's all about relevance. You've got experiential learning. Like, it's not as good to just have a simulation. It's not as good to have well, think about this. Here's a picture. It's not as good as just watching someone do a demo, right? If I'm really in it, if I'm submersed into the experience, right? Again, it's a whole nother level of relevance for me. This idea of learning by doing is maybe the most important on the slide. The notion that as an adult, I need to figure it out. As I explore around, as I click around in the cloud interface, I'm on AWS. Not only do I remember what I learned, but I learn things way faster. And I also learn additional things along the way. Like my whole experience is more broad, but I need it to challenge. I need to fail. I need to do something wrong. I need to blow it up. And I learn that way. And then that's really related to Robert and Elizabeth Bjork's notion of desirable difficulties, right? If something is too easy, people give up. They're like, this is dumb. This is a waste of my time, and they leave. If it's too hard, they might leave faster, right? It can't be too hard either. It's tough. Like, I have to get stuck, but not too stuck, right? So challenge-centric learning is an approach that enables instructional designers, lab developers, businesses to create learning experiences that give all three of these things. So let me just give you one small, silly example of what I mean. So let's say that your learners, they launch a lab. And let's start with the one on the right. So pretend that this is hidden, it should be. Let's start with the one on the right. A traditional lab will say, hey, you've got to set the time zone. Well, this lab will enable you to set the time. So from the start, you click here, you double click there, you click there. This is how labs are done 95 or more % of the time. My youngest kids could do this lab. It's not hard, right? These are the labs that people do, and then they're like, well, I'm done, but when would I do that? Like, well, the context is missing. Whereas a challenge-centric lab would say, hey, you got a new team member, lives in Chicago, you got to set the time zone, go. In one side, it's like, well, okay, I see the time, the clock is there. Let me right click that. Oh, there's a property. Okay, good. Oh, time zone. There it is. I discover it on my own, which gives me confidence. And once I do it, good. Now let's get a harder problem, right? And if I screw up, if I click the wrong thing, okay, well, that wasn't right. Now where do I go, right? I'm learning as I'm figuring it out, as opposed to when would I do that? Like I didn't really. I did some rote things. I followed some instructions. Learning to bake a cake is a similar thing, right? If you're just following the instructions, are you really, really learning to bake the cake, or did you just follow directions? That's the idea. So next thing I'll say, and this is kind of our final bit, is this idea of adopting a skills validation framework. So skills validation, we get that in a framework. Okay, so when we talk about skills validation, really, there's several ways that organizations need to validate skills. And so just to name a few, right, there's pre-assessment, pre-training assessment. So I want to know, hey, what does this person know right now? Like that way I know what their training plan ought to be, right? What should their learning journey look like? Well, I need to assess them first, right? That's common. Assessment is also done a lot in candidate validation. Like I'm in recruiting and I'm like, look, we've got like 4,000 people that want this one job. I need something that tells me who's good at this, right? Who knows it? So pre-training assessment is a thing, right? Then there's during an instructor-led class or during an on-demand course. Like what are the integrated hands-on labs that people have? Once people are done with class, boy, it's great to give them a sandbox though to just practice, so that they continue to kind of use those new skills and go past that acquisition phase and maybe past the validation phase and start moving towards durability. And then there's once in a while where it's like, hey, this is something that I need to get certified on this. And now I got to study because I don't want my company to pay for the exam. I don't want to go fail it because all my buddies will make fun of me, right? That's not cool. Which I don't think they do that anymore. When I was younger, that's what they did to people. But certification would be final, right? In certain circumstances, super important. Like there's so many scenarios that there are some of the skills that you're going to need that you need to go get that full-on exam. Well, what we're saying is that every one of these hands-on should be the main course. Every one of them. Hands-on should be the main course. Video should be the supplement, right? Instructor feedback or office hours should be the supplement. But giving people hands-on is the way to do it.